I was positioning a DC-3 on a ferry flight going from Auckland up to the top of New Zealand. And as I was going across that little inlet, ahead of me, just to the left, I noticed something in the water. The tide was out, the estuaries were pretty low. There was only about 30 feet of water, and it was very clear. And I saw something on the bottom I thought was a whale had got stranded in there. So I didn't say anything to the other couple of guys in front there, and I just sort of veered over and had a look over the side. And there was a thing sitting in the bottom of the estuary, and it was sort of a real teardrop sort of thing, really streamlined, just like that. And it had a sort of a thing there, looked like probably where you get into the thing. And it was just sitting there, pointing south. And so I took note of it, and I realised it wasn't a whale, it wasn't submarine, it had no fins on it or anything, that's all it was. So I just carried on flying up there and took a note of it and didn't say anything. But after a few days I thought, I better tell somebody, so I rang up and let the Navy know, and they weren't very happy with me at all. They said, well, why didn't you contact us straight away? I sort of thought you'd just laugh at me, and they said, no way. Not long after that, I sort of had contact with an agent. Well, he took a boat up there with an echo sounder and he checked that area where said I'd seen this thing. And he found there was an actual hole in the harbour bed where that thing had been resting. So it was about 100 feet deep and a quarter mile wide since that thing had been there. So whatever it was up to, it had left some evidence that it had been around.
Bruce Cathie was no ordinary airline pilot. He's responsible for bringing to light one of the greatest secrets of the 20th century, involving UFOs, a secret global energy system, shadowy government agencies, and the super science of our ancient past. It's an incredible story. When most airline pilots see something they can't explain when flying, they generally hush up about it, not wanting to receive bullying or a stigma from their superiors. But when Captain Bruce Cathie saw multiple UFO phenomena over the western skies of Auckland, New Zealand, he reported exactly what he saw.
I don't know whether you know New Zealand very well, but we were going to Wellington. We were about here. We were flying south. And when we were about here, we were both sort of chatting and looking at the front. And coming this way, we saw just that way up in the stratosphere, it must have been 50,000+ feet. The most gigantic thing I've ever seen. It was just a great big pale green sort of a shimmering disc. Great big disc. And it was so big, we were about 80 miles away from where it was going across the straits there. And it actually had a pretty vapor trail coming from each side of it, that's how big it was. And it also ended up right there, where this one come down from the north. These were quite a time apart.
But reporting his own UFO sightings wasn't where things stopped for Captain Cathie. He sensed there was a connection that was somehow hidden from public perception, and driven by curiosity, he undertook research into the history of sightings in that same part of the sky. What did the UFOs want with the airspace directly above a very sparsely inhabited part of New Zealand? There's nothing much out there, but Bruce discovered an extensive history of sightings over that same region of the sky. And strangely enough, all the UFOs appear to be moving along the same straight line, a line that actually terminates at Antarctica's South Pole. He started to map sightings across the whole country, and soon a pattern emerged. Multiple sightings confirmed that UFOs had regularly been seen coming in off the west coast and flying south in a straight line, disappearing somewhere above the Cook Strait. Why were they heading there in particular? And why always in the same straight line? On the morning of February 1968, a fellow airline pilot told Bruce about a large aerial that had been constructed on a private property he had flown over on Auckland's North Shore. There was something about this aerial's construction that seemed suspicious to both the pilot and to Bruce. While listed as a simple ham radio antenna, this aerial was uniquely constructed and unusually tall. Bruce compared its location with the patterns he had mapped of UFO activity and immediately found a correlation. Where a UFO had been seen hovering over Auckland and where a large mysterious explosion had taken place 11 years earlier, a straight line could be drawn that perfectly intersected this aerial's location. This led Bruce for a search for other unusual aerials that sat along these same UFO flight paths. To quote, "Over the next 4 months, I spent my days off work cruising around the Auckland area looking for anything unusual in the way of masts and aerials. Results exceeded all expectations. This investigation picked up mysterious aerials all over the city, all of them more sophisticated than what was required for basic ham radio use, and all of them sitting along the same grid that Bruce saw the UFOs were using. It dawned on Cathie that not only had he discovered a secret phenomenon, but that someone else had too, in the past. Someone probably quite powerful. Bruce presented his findings to the New Zealand government, which officially knew nothing about this, yet showed great interest in all of what Bruce had discovered. And not long after this, it became obvious that someone, or a group of someones, had started taking an interest in Bruce. First came pressure from above. The national airline that Bruce worked for received a phone call, and Bruce was hauled before his boss and told to stop what he was doing or that he'd lose his job. But this was a task with which Bruce could not comply. A significant operation was playing out in Auckland, and Kiwis had a right to know. Unable to let this go, Bruce stuck to his guns. The pressure then escalated. He found himself harassed by intelligence agents, followed and photographed, whilst the pressure from above him also continued. But things were about to change, because Bruce, shortly after this, discovered something incredible. This is all happening during the time of international nuclear test detonations that were taking place globally. And Bruce discovered that whenever a nation detonated a nuclear bomb explosion, that this invariably happened along the same UFO grid line that he had discovered. What's more, these detonations generally featured geoastronomical alignments that gave Bruce data with which he could forecast when future bomb detonations would occur. The French happened to be testing nuclear bombs in the South Pacific at this time, so Bruce was asked to give calculated estimates about when their next few detonations would take place. He did the calculations, gave his estimates, and over the next few weeks was proven to be consistently correct with a scary degree of accuracy. Now, for the New Zealand officials, this must have been pretty mind-blowing, but for Bruce, well, he was still wrestling with the ramifications of what he had discovered. His conclusion was that atomic particles seem to require precise astronomical harmonic conditions upon the Earth to become unstable. What did this mean for the threat of nuclear warfare? For Bruce, it meant that the threat of annihilation that had been hanging over the world like a shadow for so very long had suddenly become a far less menacing threat. And it also meant there was incredible energy in the grid. I mentioned a mysterious explosion that had taken place in a factory along a UFO grid line. How many more mysterious explosions could be put down to this phenomenon? It's worth mentioning the Tunguska explosion, which decimated Siberia in the early 1900s, thought by some to be associated with Nikola Tesla and his infamous death ray, and by others to have been the destruction of UFO craft. We must now entertain the possibility that even as far back as the early 1900s, this energy grid was known, understood, and worked with. But we can go back further than that. Projecting Bruce's New Zealand grid across a world map, we see it matches up with Platonic spherical geometry, in which the Earth's sphere is comprised of sacred geometric lines that form a grid. Where these lines converge are exactly where megalithic sites from ancient antiquity have been built. On the same grid, we find Stonehenge, Easter Island, Machu Picchu, Tiwanaku, and the Giza pyramids. There seems to be little question that at least some of these ancient civilizations knew about the energy grid, or at least knew that where they were building these ancient megalithic sites were places of extreme energy convergence. Now, according to megalithic expert Hugh Newman, the ancients built monuments to draw in earth energy, which appears electric in nature, through structures composed of granite and sandstone, using this energy in different ways. Some would enhance crop yields by charging up their seeds. Most cultures would amplify this energy's frequency to induce altered states of consciousness. And if we go further back, we encounter the suggestion of highly advanced aerial technology, culminating in the Great Pyramid itself, widely now thought to be a huge Earth energy amplifier. As major civilizations seem to have developed along these grid lines, could it be that an ancient advanced transportation network existed then as it appears to now? The idea would explain how distinctive motifs have been found on different continents in different cultural settings, thousands of miles apart. Secret societies are likely to have been the vehicle via which this ancient knowledge was preserved and handed down, as such groups had access to both the geometry and ancient knowledge required. However, genius observers may have also rediscovered this phenomenon in the 20th century. Now a powerful group appears to possess a secret super science, and according to Bruce, they intend to keep this a secret. Soon the group decided to change its tactics with Bruce. Instead of bullying him, they tried to buy him. but he wasn't for sale.
Help in my work was eventually offered from these quarters, but the catch was that I had to remain silent about my discoveries. This I refused to do, and I still continued to battle on my own. Once I realised the importance of the material in my possession, I considered it extremely dangerous for a small group of people to have complete control of it.
Bruce kept speaking out, publishing several books about this phenomenon. The UFO grid he discovered over New Zealand gave us richer insights into the invisible super science behind anti-gravity, Earth mysteries, nuclear physics, and the biggest secret ever to be hidden from mankind. A secret that's now slowly starting to unravel thanks to the efforts of people like Bruce Cathie, who was a true Kiwi hero. I think we can all agree the guy had some serious stones on him. He brought to light incredible knowledge, and I'd like to salute the man for his courage. Thank you, Captain. And also, thank you for watching. Please hit the like button on your way out, and perhaps I'll see you again soon.